Did you know that one of the most famous murders in history, an act meticulously planned to save freedom, ended up destroying it completely? Imagine a group of powerful men, senators in flowing togas, so convinced they are the heroes of the story that they plunge daggers into their nation's most popular leader, only to watch in horror as their noble act accidentally creates an emperor, a king, and a dynasty. It's one of history's greatest and most tragic ironies. Just before we dive in, please take a second to tap the like button and subscribe to the channel. It's the single best way to support our work and ensure you never miss a new story. We're always curious, so let us know in the comments what part of the world you're in and what time it is for you. Now, settle in and let your mind drift back. The air in Rome is thick with ambition. You can almost taste it, a metallic temps on your tongue. Remember where our last story left off, with the very founding of this city, a city built upon the murder of a brother. We said that the wolf's blood that flowed in Romulus and Remus could not be contained by foreign wars forever. For centuries, Rome channeled that aggressive, internal energy outward, conquering Italy, then Carthage, then the Mediterranean world. But the Republic grew bloated and corrupt. The ambitions of its greatest men grew with it, and now that energy is turning inward. The warning from Rome's very first day is about to be answered as brother prepares to turn against brother once more. And at the epicenter of this storm, you see a man named Gaius Julius Caesar. He is not yet the legend history would make him. He is a politician, a brilliant public speaker, and a man whose debts are almost as famous as his charm. You see him moving through the crowds of the Roman Forum, and there's a magnetism to him, a self-assurance that is both dazzling and deeply unsettling to the old guard of the Senate. These are the old aristocratic families, the men who believe they are the rightful custodians of the Republic. They look at Caesar, and they don't see a public servant. They see a predator. They see the wolf. The Roman Republic in this era is a mess. It's a system designed for a small city-state, now trying to govern a vast, multicultural territory. Power is gridlocked between factions, the populares who champion the common people, and the optimates, the conservative aristocrats. Wealth inequality is staggering. While generals and governors return from the provinces laden with unimaginable riches, the small farmers of Italy are losing their land and flooding into Rome, creating a volatile, unemployed urban population. The system is breaking. And into this fractured world step powerful men who decide the rules no longer apply to them. Men like Caesar, who formed an unofficial alliance with two other titans, Pompey the Great and the fabulously wealthy Crassus. This first triumvirate was essentially a backroom deal to carve up the state for their own benefit, a clear sign that the Republic's institutions were failing. Historians still argue whether Caesar was a genuine reformer who wanted to fix this broken system, or if he was simply a supremely ambitious man using the people's anger to seize power for himself. The truth is likely somewhere in the middle. He was a product of his time, and the time was calling for a man who could break the stalemate. His ambition was the spark, but the Republic itself was the tinder, dry and ready to burn. You leave the marble and the heat of the Roman Forum behind you. The air grows cold and damp as you travel north, into Gaul. This is a land of dense, dark forests, of misty hills and unbridged rivers. It feels like the edge of the known world, a place far from the machinations of the Senate. But it is here, in this green wilderness, that the fate of the Republic is being forged. You find Caesar not in a palace but in a legionary camp. The man you saw gliding through the Forum is transformed. He is dressed in the simple wool tunic of a soldier, a scarlet cloak pinned at his shoulder. You see him sharing the same coarse bread and sour wine as his legionaries, calling veteran centurions by name, asking about their families back in Italy. This is the source of his power. It isn't just his genius on the battlefield, though that is undeniable. It is his bond with these men. For nearly a decade, you follow his campaigns. You witness the methodical, relentless efficiency of the Roman war machine. You see legions building fortified camps in hours, constructing siege engines that can splinter the walls of Gallic hill forts, and marching 30 miles a day in full armor. Caesar is a master of this world. He is audacious, leading his men in punishing winter campaigns when no one expects it. He is a brilliant engineer. In one famous instance, to intimidate the Germanic tribes, he ordered his men to build a massive wooden bridge across the wide and fast-flowing Rhine River. They completed it in just 10 days. It was a feat so incredible, so beyond what the tribes thought possible, that it was seen as an act of the gods. He marched his legions across, made a show of force, and then marched back, dismantling the bridge behind him. The message was clear: we can cross into your lands whenever we choose. There is no way you can hide. While he is conquering, he is also writing. His book, The Gallic Wars, is sent back to Rome in installments. It is a masterpiece of political propaganda, written in clean, direct prose. In its pages, Caesar is always calm, always decisive, always heroic. His victories are glorious, his enemies are treacherous, and his actions are always for the good of Rome. The people in the city read these accounts avidly. They see him as their champion, the man expanding Rome's glory and bringing back wealth and slaves. But there is a darker side to this story, a side Caesar leaves out of his dispatches. Historians still debate the true human cost of his conquest. Some ancient sources claim that in 8 years, his campaigns resulted in the death of 1 million Gauls and the enslavement of 1 million more. Whether these numbers are exact or not, the campaign was exceptionally brutal, even by Roman standards. Back in Rome, the senators are reading Caesar's dispatches too, but they are not cheering. They are terrified. They see what he is building. It is not just an addition to the empire, it is a private kingdom. He has an army of hardened veterans, tens of thousands of men who have known no other commander. Their loyalty is not to the abstract idea of the Republic, or to the Senate that has not paid them. Their loyalty is to the man who has led them, led with them, and promised them land and retirement money. This army is a weapon, and it is pointed not at the Gauls or the Germans, but at the heart of Rome itself. The man who was a nuisance has become a menace. His success is now the single greatest threat the Republic has ever faced. The fear you saw in the senator's eyes has now curdled into action. Back in Rome, the political situation has become a powder keg. Caesar's powerful ally Crassus is dead, lost in a disastrous war in the east. His other ally, Pompey the Great, Rome's most celebrated general before Caesar, has grown wary of his former friend's rising star. The Senate, seeing an opportunity, coaxes Pompey to their side. They feel they finally have a champion strong enough to put Caesar back in his place. They pass a decree. Caesar must disband his army and return to Rome as a private citizen. If he fails to comply by a certain date, he will be declared an enemy of the state. It is an impossible choice, and they know it. To return to Rome without his legions would be suicide. His political enemies, the ones who fear and despise him, would immediately bring a flood of lawsuits against him for his actions as consul and governor. His career would be over, his life likely forfeit. To keep his army would be to declare war on his own country. You can feel the weight of this decision pressing down on him. The dispatches stop. The reports from Gaul go silent. All of Rome holds its breath. You find Caesar in the small town of Ravenna, on the very edge of his province. It is January, 49 BC. The air is cold and thin. He has only 1 legion with him, the loyal 13th. The rest of his vast army is still scattered across Gaul and winter quarters. He receives the Senate's final ultimatum. This is it, the point of no return. You watch him as he feigns casualness, attending a public gladiatorial show, discussing plans for a new amphitheater. But beneath the surface, his mind is racing. That night, under the cover of darkness, he gathers his officers. Then, you are marching south, a small column of soldiers moving quickly through the winter night. The road leads to a small, unremarkable stream. It is not a mighty river like the Rhine. It is shallow enough to wade across, its water muddy and slow. This is the Rubicon. It means nothing geographically, but legally, it means everything. It is the official boundary between Caesar's province of Gaul and the heartland of Italy. For a serving governor to cross this line with a single armed soldier was an act of treason, a declaration of war against the Senate and people of Rome. You stand with him on the northern bank. The torches of the 13th Legion flicker, casting long shadows. His men are silent, waiting for the command. You can almost hear the gears of history turning in the quiet night. Historians still argue about this moment. Was he a reluctant rebel, a man pushed into a corner by his enemies, who left him no choice but to fight for his life and dignity? Or was this the plan all along, the culmination of years of ambition, the moment a would-be tyrant finally cast off his mask? He paces on the riverbank, conflicted. An ancient story says he saw a vision of a great figure urging him forward. More likely, he was simply weighing the two futures: political oblivion on one side, a world engulfed in flames on the other. He stops pacing, looks across the shallow water towards Rome, and speaks the now immortal words, Alia iacta est. The die is cast. He has made his bet. He gives the signal, and the standard-bearer of the 13th Legion takes the first step into the cold water. Caesar follows, and behind him, his army crosses into Italy. The Republic has just ended. Civil war has just begun. The die is cast, and the world holds its breath, expecting a long and bloody war. But Caesar moves with a speed that paralyzes his enemies. He doesn't march on Rome, he sprints. Town after town opens its gates to him without a fight. His reputation as a man of the people precedes him. The great Pompey, the supposed champion of the Republic, is caught completely off guard. Along with most of the Senate, he is forced to abandon Italy, fleeing across the Adriatic Sea to Greece to raise an army. In just 60 days, without a single major battle, Caesar is the master of Italy. The war, however, is far from over. You follow Caesar as he consolidates his power, first in Spain, and then turning his attention east to confront Pompey directly. The two titans of Rome finally meet on the plains of Pharsalus in Greece. Caesar is heavily outnumbered, his troops weary and short on supplies. Pompey's camp is a picture of aristocratic confidence, senators arguing over who will get Caesar's prestigious office of Pontifex Maximus after their inevitable victory, but they underestimate their opponent. Caesar's veterans, the men loyal to him and him alone, shatter Pompey's legions. The great general flees the field, a broken man. His flight takes him to Egypt, where he hopes to find refuge with the young King Ptolemy XIII. But the king's advisors see only risk. They decide that the best way to curry favor with the victor is to present him with the head of the loser. When Caesar's ships arrive in Alexandria a few days later, he is presented with a gruesome gift: his former son-in-law's severed head. Caesar, to the surprise of the Egyptians, weeps. Historians still debate whether his tears were for his lost friend, for the sad state of the Republic, or for the sheer indignity of such a great Roman dying at the hands of foreign schemers. He stays in Egypt, drawn into the country's own civil war between the young king and his brilliant, ambitious sister, Cleopatra. She famously has herself smuggled into his presence, wrapped in a carpet, and the most powerful man in the world is immediately captivated by the most powerful woman. Their political alliance becomes a personal one, and when Caesar finally leaves Egypt, he leaves behind a pregnant queen. He returns to Rome not just as a conqueror, but as the undisputed master of the Roman world. The Senate, now filled with his allies and pardoned enemies, has no choice but to shower him with honors. They name him dictator. This was an old Roman office, a temporary, 6-month emergency position to handle a crisis. But they give it to Caesar for 10 years, and then, finally, for life. Dictator perpetuo, dictator for life. You watch as Rome transforms into a city that revolves around one man. His statue is placed among those of the ancient kings. His face, for the first time in Roman history for a living man, appears on coins. A golden chair, like a throne, is placed for him in the Senate House. To the old aristocrats, every one of these honors is a stab to the heart of the Republic. This is monarchy in all but name. Yet, the common people adore him. He initiates a massive program of public works, building new forums and temples, creating thousands of jobs. He reforms the hopelessly confusing Roman calendar, creating the basic Julian calendar that, with a few tweaks, we still use today. He even settles his veterans in new colonies overseas, rebuilding the great cities of Carthage and Corinth that Rome had once destroyed. He is an uncrowned king, a monarch who solves their problems. And the tension between the adoring masses and the terrified elite becomes a chasm running straight through the heart of Rome. While the city celebrates its new master, you slip into the shadows. You move away from the grand construction projects and the cheering crowds into the quiet lamplit porticos of aristocratic villas. In these places, the mood is not celebratory, it is funereal. The senators who walk here see the statues of Caesar and feel a deep chill. They see his face on the coins used to buy bread in the market and feel a profound sense of violation. To them, the Republic is not a broken system in need of a firm hand. It is a sacred inheritance, a legacy of liberty paid for by the blood of their ancestors, and they believe it is being dismantled before their very eyes. In these shadows, you find a man named Gaius Cassius Longinus. He is thin, with a restless energy about him. He has a sharp mind and a sharper tongue. Cassius had fought against Caesar in the Civil War, was pardoned by him, and was even given a high-ranking position. But he is not grateful. He is resentful. He looks at Caesar and sees not a benevolent dictator, but a tyrant who has usurped the proper order of things. He feels a personal and ideological hatred for the man, and he begins to whisper. He seeks out other senators who feel the same, men who are afraid, men who miss the old days when their families, not one man, guided the state. He finds many who are willing to listen, but he knows that for any plot to succeed, for it to be seen as a noble act and not just a jealous murder, he needs one man. He needs Marcus Junius Brutus. Brutus is different. He is a quiet, intellectual man, a student of philosophy who seems more at home in a library than in the cutthroat world of Roman politics. But his name is his destiny. His ancestor, Lucius Junius Brutus, was the man who, 500 years earlier, famously expelled the last king from Rome and founded the Republic. The name Brutus is synonymous with the hatred of kings. Yet, the situation is deeply complicated. Caesar genuinely loves Brutus. He had pardoned him after the Civil War, promoted him, and treats him almost like a son. In fact, Brutus's mother, Servilia, had been one of Caesar's most famous and long-standing mistresses, leading to persistent, if unlikely, rumors that Caesar was Brutus's real father. You become a fly on the wall, witnessing Cassius's relentless campaign to win Brutus over. He approaches him, not with a direct call to murder, but with questions. He asks if Brutus has seen the new statues, if he approves of the golden chair. He reminds Brutus of his great ancestor, asking what that first Brutus would do now. When Brutus remains conflicted, torn between his love for Caesar and his duty to the Republic, the conspirators begin a campaign of psychological pressure. They leave anonymous notes on his official praetor's chair in the Senate. "Brutus, are you asleep?" one reads. Another says simply, "You are no true Brutus." They are appealing to his legacy, to his honor, to his very identity. You are there in the quiet study of his home late one night. Brutus paces before a bust of his famous ancestor. He is agonizing over the choice. To kill Caesar is to betray a friend and benefactor. To do nothing is to betray the Republic and the memory of all who came before him. Historians still argue about this moment. Was he a pure idealist, a philosopher king forced to make a terrible choice for the greater good? Or was he also driven by the pride of his family name and the fear of losing his own status in Caesar's new world? Finally, he makes his decision. He concludes that his love for Rome must be greater than his love for one man. With Brutus on board, the conspiracy swells. More than 60 senators join the plot, a testament to the fear Caesar inspired. They are a brotherhood now, bound by a terrible secret. They call themselves the Liberators, and they begin to plan the day, the place, and the method of their salvation. The plan is made. The daggers are hidden. Now, all that is left is the waiting. The date is set for the Ides of March, March 15th, 44 BC. The name itself, Ides, simply meant the middle of the month in the Roman calendar, but it would soon become a name synonymous with betrayal forever. In the days leading up to it, a strange and heavy atmosphere settles over Rome. It feels as if the city itself knows that something terrible is about to happen. You feel it in the air. Historians writing after the fact, men like Suetonius and Plutarch, recorded a series of terrifying omens. Perhaps they were embellished to make the story more grand, or perhaps a city on the edge of a nervous breakdown began to see portents in every shadow. Wild birds of prey were said to have fought in the middle of the Roman Forum. Herds of horses that Caesar had dedicated and set free after crossing the Rubicon were seen weeping, refusing to eat. A soothsayer, a man named Spurina, had personally warned Caesar weeks earlier to beware the Ides of March, a warning Caesar had laughed off. The night before the Ides is thick with dread. A storm rages over the city. Caesar's wife Calpurnia thrashes in her sleep, plagued by nightmares. She dreams that the decorative pinnacle on their house, a senatorial honor, collapses. In another vision, she sees Caesar's body, bloody and broken, and she cradles him in her arms, weeping. She wakes up in a state of pure terror. In the morning, you are there as she clings to him, begging him not to go to the Senate meeting. She is frantic, convinced that if he leaves the house today, he will not return alive. Her fear seems to be confirmed by the gods themselves. As was his custom, Caesar orders a sacrifice to be made to determine if the day is auspicious. The priests perform the ritual, but when they examine the entrails of the animal, they find the worst possible omen. The beast has no heart. An animal cannot live without a heart, and to find one missing in a sacrifice was a sign of profound divine disapproval. Caesar, ever the rationalist, jokes that perhaps the animal's heart was simply not in its chest, but the cumulative weight of the warnings finally seems to affect him. He is a superstitious man, as most Romans were. Between his wife's desperate pleas and the frankly terrifying results of the sacrifice, he hesitates. He sends a message to Mark Antony to dismiss the Senate. The Liberators' plot is about to fail because of a bad dream and a missing organ. But the conspirators had a man on the inside, a man Caesar trusted implicitly. His name was Decimus Brutus, a distant cousin of the more famous Marcus Brutus. Seeing Caesar waver, Decimus rushes to his side. You watch as he expertly manipulates the dictator. He scoffs at the omens, calling them superstitions unworthy of a man like Caesar. He appeals to Caesar's ego. The Senate has gathered to honor you, he says. They are ready to vote on giving you the title of king in the eastern provinces. Are you going to send a message telling them to come back another time, when Calpurnia has had better dreams? The words hit their mark. Caesar would look weak, foolish, ruled by his wife. Decimus shames him into going. It is one of the most chilling betrayals of the entire conspiracy. With a sigh, Caesar gives in. As he walks to the litter that will carry him to the meeting, he passes the soothsayer Spurina in the crowd. The Ides of March have come, Caesar says with a triumphant smile. The old man replies quietly, "Aye, Caesar, but not yet gone." You follow Caesar's litter as it moves through the crowded streets of Rome. The conspirators walk with him, flanking him like a guard of honor, their hands nervously close to the folds of their togas where the daggers are hidden. A man in the crowd, a Greek teacher named Artemidorus, who had somehow learned of the plot, pushes forward. He shoves a small scroll into Caesar's hand, pleading with him to read it immediately, telling him it contains matters of life and death. But Caesar, distracted by the petitioners and the general noise, simply hands the scroll to an attendant to hold for him. The written warning, the last chance for salvation, is lost in the shuffle of daily business. The Senate is not meeting in its usual building, the Curia, which was being rebuilt after a fire. Instead, they gather in a large hall attached to the Theatre of Pompey. This is an irony so thick you could cut it with a knife. Caesar is about to be struck down at the foot of a statue of his great rival Pompey, the very man he had defeated to achieve this supreme power. He enters the hall, and the assembled senators rise to their feet. Mark Antony, Caesar's loyal and physically powerful co-consul, is deliberately waylaid outside by one of the conspirators, who engages him in a long, distracting conversation. They knew Antony would have fought to the death to protect Caesar. Caesar takes his seat, the golden chair that so offended his enemies. The trap is sprung. One of the plotters, Tullius Cimber, approaches him with a petition, supposedly pleading for the return of his exiled brother. This is the signal. He kneels before Caesar, grabbing his toga and pulling it down from his neck. This exposes Caesar's throat and shoulders, and it is the sign for the others to attack. This is violence, Caesar cries out as he understands what is happening. Another conspirator, Casca, who was positioned behind the chair, strikes the first blow. He aims for the throat, but, in his nervousness, the dagger only grazes Caesar's shoulder. The scene descends into absolute chaos. This is not a clean, swift execution. It is a frantic, messy, and brutal attack. Caesar rises to his feet and fights back. He is a trained soldier, and at 60 years old, still a formidable man. He stabs Casca in the arm with his stylus, the sharp metal pen he used for writing. The senators, more than 60 of them, swarm him. They are a clumsy mob, not a disciplined unit. In their frenzy, they cut and stab each other by accident. They are driven by a mixture of ideology, fear, and panic. Daggers rise and fall. You see the flash of steel, the dark splash of blood on white togas. Caesar stumbles through the press of bodies, looking for an escape, but he is surrounded. Then, through the crowd of flailing arms and panicked faces, he sees him, Marcus Brutus, his friend, the man he loved like a son. Brutus steps forward, his own dagger raised. For a moment, Caesar stops fighting. His eyes lock with Brutus's. According to the historian Suetonius, it is at this moment that Caesar, seeing the man he had protected and promoted ready to strike, gives up. He covers his head with his toga, accepting his fate. He speaks his last heartbroken words, not in Latin but in Greek, the language of educated intimacy. Kai su tenon, you too, my child. Some later Latin sources would translate this into the more famous et tu, Brute. The meaning is the same. It is the ultimate expression of betrayal. Brutus delivers his blow. Caesar falls at the base of Pompey's statue, which is splattered with his blood. He is stabbed 23 times, a final, bloody testament to the fear and hatred he inspired in the men who once called him a colleague. The air in the hall is suddenly still. The frantic energy of the attack vanishes, replaced by a stunned, heavy silence. The only sound is the ragged breathing of the assassins. Caesar lies dead at the foot of Pompey's statue. The liberators stand over his body, their togas stained, their hands and daggers dripping with blood. For a moment, they just stare, as if they can't quite believe what they have done. Then, Brutus tries to seize the moment. He raises his bloody dagger and calls out to Cicero, the famous orator who was present but not part of the plot, trying to make him a witness to their great deed for the Republic. But no one is listening. The other senators, the ones not in on the plot, are in a state of shock and terror. They had just witnessed the most powerful man in the world being butchered by their colleagues. They scramble for the exits, tripping over each other in their haste to get away. The news spills out into the city like a poison. Caesar is dead, murdered in the Senate. The conspirators, led by Brutus, march out of the hall and into the Roman Forum. They hold up their bloody weapons, shouting liberty, freedom, tyranny is dead. They expect to be met with cheers. They expect the people to pour into the streets and celebrate them as heroes, just as their ancestors had celebrated the first Brutus. Instead, they are met with a terrifying silence. The shopkeepers in the Forum, hearing the commotion and seeing the armed, blood-soaked senators, quickly slam their wooden shutters closed. The crowds melt away, people fleeing into the side streets and running for the safety of their homes. There is no celebration, There is no joy. There is only fear. The liberators had made a fatal miscalculation. They, the educated aristocrats, saw Caesar as a tyrant who had destroyed their cherished political system. But the common people of Rome saw him as their champion. He was the man who gave them jobs, who celebrated their triumphs, who seemed to care about their struggles. They did not feel liberated. They felt that their protector had been murdered by a pack of wealthy, entitled aristocrats. The city grinds to a halt. A sense of profound uncertainty hangs in the air. Who is in charge now? Is it the Senate? Is it the assassins? Is it Caesar's loyal general, Mark Antony, who is currently in hiding, fearing for his own life? The conspirators, confused by the public's reaction, retreat to the Capitoline Hill, the ancient citadel of Rome, for safety. They have killed the king, but they have no plan for what comes next. They had assumed that with the tyrant gone, the Republic would magically spring back to life, like a flower after a storm. But they had forgotten that Caesar wasn't the disease. He was a symptom of a republic that was already dying. All they had done was kill the doctor, and in doing so, they had ripped open a wound that would never heal. In this moment, you feel the colossal weight of their mistake. They thought the problem was one man, but the problem was the system itself, the deep divisions, the corruption, and the insatiable ambition that had been growing for a century. By killing Caesar, they hadn't restored the old republic. They had just created a power vacuum. And as you know, nature abhors a vacuum. Into that empty space, something new and far more powerful was about to rush. The liberators stand on their hill, holding their bloody daggers, looking down at a silent, fearful city. They believe they have saved Rome, but you can feel it in the quiet streets and the shuttered windows. They have just damned it. The silence that had fallen over Rome could not last. It was the tense, coiled quiet of a predator before it strikes. For a few days, an uneasy truce holds the city together. The liberators, led by Brutus, descend from the Capitoline Hill and negotiate with Mark Antony. Antony, a man known more for his carousing and military prowess than his political cunning, plays his part beautifully. He seems conciliatory, reasonable. A deal is struck. The Senate, in a display of bizarre political compromise, ratifies all of Caesar's acts and appointments while also granting full amnesty to his assassins. It is an attempt to pretend nothing has happened. As part of this fragile peace, it is agreed that Caesar will be given a public funeral. Brutus, in a move historians see as his greatest political blunder, agrees. He believes it is only proper. He has no idea he has just handed Antony a loaded weapon. You find yourself in the Roman Forum once more. The mood is heavy, mournful, and thick with an unspoken tension. A vast crowd of common Romans has gathered, the same people who had fled in fear days before. They are here to say goodbye to their champion. An ivory funeral couch is placed on the rostra, the speaker's platform. Upon it lies Caesar's body, covered by a magnificent purple toga embroidered with gold stars. A pyre has been built nearby, ready for the cremation. The conspirators are not present, having been wisely advised to stay away. They believe the danger has passed. Then, Mark Antony walks onto the platform. He is Caesar's co-consul, his most trusted general, his friend. The crowd murmurs, waiting. Antony begins his speech, his eulogy. He starts, slowly, calmly, honoring the terms of the truce. He doesn't name the assassins or call them traitors. He speaks of Caesar's greatness, his victories for Rome, his clemency. It is a good speech, but it lacks fire. The crowd listens, their grief simmering but not boiling over. It seems Brutus's gamble might pay off. But Antony is just getting started. He is a master of political theater. As his speech builds in emotion, he walks over to the couch. With a dramatic flourish, he rips the purple toga away, revealing Caesar's pale body, wrapped only in its bloody linen undergarment. The crowd gasps. Antony begins to point out the wounds, his voice rising with theatrical grief. See here, where Casca stabbed him, and here, the rent made by Cassius's dagger. Then comes his A special wax effigy of Caesar, a lifelike replica, had been prepared. It is hoisted up on a mechanical device above the body and slowly rotated for the entire crowd to see. On the effigy, every single one of the 23 stab wounds is marked, a gruesome and horrifying catalogue of the betrayal. The crowd's quiet grief begins to curdle into rage. Antony senses the shift. He has them now. He holds up another scroll. His will, he announces. He tells the crowd he shouldn't read it, that it will only inflame them, that it will show them how much Caesar loved them and how cruelly he was taken. The crowd, of course, roars for him to read it. Antony relents, as if against his better judgment. He reads the will of Gaius, Julius Caesar. The dictator has left his vast and beautiful gardens across the Tiber River to the people of Rome as a public park, forever. More than that, he has bequeathed a small fortune, tercientus sesterces, to every single Roman citizen. This is not the act of a tyrant, this is the act of a father. The crowd realizes in an instant that the conspirators haven't just murdered a leader, they have murdered their benefactor. They have stolen from every man, woman, and child in the city. The dam of grief breaks, and a tidal wave of fury is unleashed. The funeral becomes a riot. The firestorm has begun. The crowd surges forward, grabbing benches, tables, and anything that will burn to create a massive funeral pyre right in the forum. In their rage, they tear an innocent man, a poet named Cinna, to pieces simply because he shares a name with one of the conspirators. The liberators are forced to flee Rome for their lives. Their dream of saving the Republic has just gone up in the flames of Caesar's funeral pyre. With Rome in turmoil and the liberators scattered, Mark Antony is the undisputed master of the city. He has Caesar's official papers, giving him the power to enact any law he claims Caesar had planned. He has control of Caesar's immense treasury. He has the loyalty of the consul's guard. To everyone watching, it seems the game is over. Antony has inherited Caesar's power, and the only remaining question is how he will use it to hunt down Brutus and Cassius. But they have all overlooked one small detail, a detail contained in the will that Antony himself read aloud to the roaring crowd. To find that detail, you must leave the chaos of Italy behind. You travel across the sea to Apollonia, a city in what is now modern-day Albania. It is a place of learning and military training, a sort of ancient university town where the sons of Roman nobles go to be polished. Here, in the quiet of a lecture hall or the dust of a training ground, you find a young man named Gaius Octavius. He is just 18 years old. If you were to look at him, you would see nothing remarkable. He is not tall or physically imposing. In fact, he is known to be sickly, frequently suffering from illnesses that leave him weak. He is Caesar's great-nephew, a distant relation, and no one, least of all Caesar, had ever marked him for greatness. He is an afterthought. Then, a ship arrives, carrying frantic messengers from Rome. They find the young man and deliver the news that shatters his world. His great-uncle, the most powerful man on earth, has been assassinated. But that is not all. They bring him a copy of the will. He reads the words, and his life is irrevocably split into a before and an after. Caesar, the man with no legitimate son of his own, has posthumously adopted him. He is not just the heir to 3/4 of Caesar's staggering fortune. He is now, by law and name, Caesar's son. His family is horrified. His mother, Atia, and his wise stepfather, Philippus, get word to him immediately. They beg him, plead with him, to refuse the inheritance. To them, it is a poisoned chalice. To accept is to paint a target on his back. The assassins who killed the great Caesar would surely have no trouble disposing of a sickly, unknown teenager. And then there is Mark Antony, who already sees himself as Caesar's political heir. He would never tolerate a rival, especially one with a more legitimate claim to the name. To accept the will is to step into a ring with seasoned killers and political heavyweights. It is, by any sane calculation, a death sentence. But as you watch this young man absorb the news, you see something that his family misses. Behind the frail exterior, there is a core of ice. He possesses a chilling self-possession and a political intellect that is utterly terrifying in one so young. Historians still debate why Caesar chose him. Did he somehow see this hidden potential, this ruthless pragmatism in the quiet boy? Or was it simply that Octavius was his closest male relative, a final dynastic gamble? Whatever Caesar's reason, the boy does not hesitate. He understands what his family does not. The name Caesar is not just a risk, it is the ultimate political weapon. It gives him a claim on the loyalty of the legions, the love of the people, and a legitimacy that Antony can never match. He calmly informs his friends and family that he is accepting his inheritance. He is no longer Gaius Octavius. He is now Gaius Julius Caesar Octavianus, a boy, armed with nothing but a name and a fortune, set sail for Italy to claim his destiny. In Rome, Antony has no idea that his most dangerous rival is not a senator or a general, but the quiet teenager he is about to dismiss as a mere boy. Octavian arrives in Italy, and at first, everything happens just as his worried family predicted. Mark Antony treats him with utter contempt. When Octavian tries to claim his inheritance, Antony, who has already spent much of the money, blocks him at every turn. He patronizes him in the Senate, calling him the boy and mocking his ambition. Antony feels secure. He has legions. He has political power. He is a man of proven strength. He looks at Octavian and sees a frail, insignificant annoyance. This is perhaps Antony's greatest mistake, one he will share with many others who underestimated this young man. But Octavian is playing a different game. He is patient, cunning, and understands propaganda better than anyone. He knows he cannot match Antony's military might, not yet. So he attacks him where he is strongest, his connection to Caesar. While Antony uses Caesar's legacy to consolidate his own power, Octavian uses his own money, borrowing heavily against his future inheritance, to fulfill the terms of Caesar's will. He pays the 300 sesterces to every citizen in Rome that Antony had promised but failed to deliver. The people begin to murmur. This boy, this real son of Caesar, is the one who honors his father's wishes. Antony looks like a thief. Octavian then stages a series of public games in honor of Caesar. During the festivities, a brilliant comet appears in the daytime sky, visible for 7 straight days. It is a stunning celestial event. Octavian immediately seizes the opportunity, declaring it to be the deified soul of Julius Caesar ascending to the heavens. He has a star added to the head of Caesar's statues all over the city. The message is simple and powerful. His father is now a god, and he is the son of a god. It is a stroke of public relations genius. In a deeply superstitious world, this gives him an aura of divine favor that Antony, for all his power, cannot replicate. The political situation grows increasingly complex and violent. Cicero, the great orator, despises Antony and sees in Octavian a useful, and he believes, disposable weapon. He champions the boy in the Senate, hoping to use him to destroy Antony and then cast him aside. This leads to a brief war between Antony's forces and the Senate's legions, with Octavian fighting alongside the Senate. Antony is defeated and forced to flee north, but when the Senate, believing the threat is over, snubs Octavian and refuses him the honors he feels he deserves, the boy shows his true colors. He marches his army on Rome and forces the Senate to make him consul. He is just 19 years old. Now, with a position of legal power, Octavian does the unthinkable. He reaches out to his hated rival, Mark Antony. He also brings in a third, less powerful but still influential Caesarian general named Marcus Aemilius Lepidus. The three of them meet on a small island in a river near modern-day Bologna. You are a silent witness to the formation of one of the most cynical and brutal alliances in history. They agree to put aside their personal hatred to achieve two goals: to destroy their common enemies, the liberators, and to legally seize control of the state. They form the second triumvirate. Unlike the first one, which was a secret pact, this one is made official law. It gives the three men absolute power to rule the Roman world for 5 years. Their first act is horrifying. They create prescription lists, a legally sanctioned hit list of their political and personal enemies. Hundreds of senators and thousands of wealthy equestrians are named. Their property is confiscated to pay the triumvirate legions, and a bounty is placed on their heads. A wave of terror washes over Rome, far worse than anything Caesar ever did. The great orator Cicero, who had tried to play Octavian like a pawn, finds his own name on Antony's list. He is hunted down and killed, his head and hands cut off and nailed to the rostra in the Forum. A gruesome warning to all who would oppose the new masters of Rome. The Republic is not just dead, its grave is being danced upon. With Rome cowed and their coffers filled with the wealth of their murdered enemies, the triumvirs turn their attention east. This is where the last hope of the old Republic resides. Brutus and Cassius, the leaders of the assassination plot, have not been idle. After fleeing Italy, they traveled through the eastern provinces, using their famous names and the authority of the Senate to raise a massive army. They have amassed 19 legions, a formidable force, and have established a base in northern Greece. They are no longer just a small band of conspirators. They are the commanders of the last Republican army, ready to fight one final battle for their vision of Rome. You cross the Adriatic with the legions of the Triumvirate. The army is a joint command, a testament to the fragile alliance between Octavian and Antony. Octavian, however, is once again struck by one of his convenient illnesses and remains in the camp for much of the campaign. The real commander on the field is Mark Antony, who is in his element. He is a brilliant soldier, bold and beloved by his men. He is everything Octavian is not, a man of action and raw charisma. The two armies finally meet near the city of Philippi. The landscape is a flat plain, cut by a major road, the Via Egnatia, and flanked by marshlands. The Republican forces, led by Brutus and Cassius, hold the high ground, a strong defensive position. Their strategy is to wait, to let the triumvir's army, which is struggling with its supply lines, slowly starve. It is a sound military plan. Cassius, the pragmatic and experienced soldier, is determined to stick to it. But Brutus, the idealist, is tormented by the idea of a long, drawn-out war. His men are eager for a decisive battle. The pressure to fight builds. The Battle of Philippi is actually two separate engagements, fought 3 weeks apart. In the first battle, Antony launches a surprise attack, smashing through Cassius's defenses. In the confusion of the fight, Cassius sees a group of horsemen riding towards his camp. Believing they are the enemy and that all is lost, he falls into despair. He orders his personal servant to kill him. It is a tragic mistake. The horsemen were actually his own men, returning from a successful counterattack on another part of the battlefield. They were coming to bring him news of victory. When Brutus learns of his friend and co-commander's death, he weeps, calling Cassius the last of the Romans. With the pragmatic Cassius gone, the full command falls to Brutus. For 3 weeks he holds his position, but the pressure from his officers and the declining morale of his army force his hand. He agrees to a second battle. This time, the outcome is decisive. Antony's legions, battle-hardened and expertly led, overwhelm the Republican forces. The battle turns into a rout. The dream of the liberators is shattered on the plains of Philippi. You follow Brutus as he flees into the nearby hills with a small group of his surviving friends. He knows there is no escape. The triumvirate soldiers are scouring the countryside for him. As night falls, he sits under a tree, a defeated man. He has lost everything. He killed the man he loved for an ideal, and that ideal now lies dead on the battlefield, along with thousands of his soldiers. Historians say he quoted a line from a Greek play, "O wretched virtue, you were but a name, and yet I worshipped you as real indeed." He asks one of his companions to hold his sword steady so he can run upon it. His friend refuses, but another, his loyal freedman Strato, agrees. Brutus takes his own life. With the deaths of Cassius and Brutus, the cause of the liberators is extinguished forever. The last flame of the Roman Republic, which had burned for nearly 500 years, is snuffed out in the mud and blood of Philippi. The assassination that was meant to save it has led directly to its final violent end. With the bodies of Brutus and Cassius cold, the civil war against the liberators is over. You stand with the victors, Antony and Octavian, on the blood-soaked ground of Philippi. The Republic is a ghost, and the entire Roman world now lies at their feet, a prize to be divided. They are the masters of everything, but the alliance that brought them this victory is already beginning to fray. It was a partnership forged in necessity and revenge, and with their enemies gone, only their own towering ambitions remain. First, there is the matter of the third man, Lepidus. He was not at Philippi. He had been left to govern Rome while the two senior partners went to war. This absence makes him look weak, a junior partner in a game of giants. Antony and Octavian, seeing a chance to increase their own shares, accuse Lepidus of secretly dealing with an enemy commander. Historians still debate whether there was any truth to the accusation, or if it was simply a convenient pretext to sideline him. Either way, it works. They strip him of his powerful provinces in Spain and Gaul. He is effectively neutered, pushed out of the inner circle of power, and given the province of Africa as a sort of consolation prize. The triumvirate still officially has 3 heads, but everyone can see it now has only 2 hearts, beating out of sync. The world is now a giant chessboard, and the 2 remaining players divide the pieces. Antony, as the senior partner and the hero of Philippi, gets first choice. He is a man of grand appetites, for wine, for women, and for glory. He looks east. The East is the ancient, wealthy, and glamorous half of the world. It is the land of Greek culture, Egyptian gold, and the legendary conquests of Alexander the Great. It is a world of sophisticated cities, old kingdoms, and immense resources. For a man like Antony, it is the perfect prize. His task is to tour these provinces, re-establish Roman authority, and, most importantly, raise the vast sums of money needed to pay their enormous combined armies. He sets off for a life of royal splendor, ready to be treated like the king he feels he is. That leaves the West for Octavian. On paper, this includes the heartland of Italy and the valuable provinces of Gaul and Spain. But in reality, it is the far more difficult and thankless job. The West is exhausted by war, and Octavian is given the single most unpopular task imaginable. He must return to Italy and find land for more than 100,000 retiring veteran soldiers. This means confiscating property from Italian farmers and townsfolk to give to the men who fought for the triumvirate. It is a guaranteed recipe for social unrest, political backlash, and hatred. While Antony gets to play the great conqueror among the riches of the East, Octavian is sent home to be the state's tax collector and land agent, the man who has to deliver the bad news. You can feel the tension in this division. It is not a permanent solution. It is a temporary ceasefire between 2 predators who have agreed to hunt in different territories for a while. They are too different, their ambitions too absolute, to coexist forever. Antony is a lion, powerful, charismatic, and direct. Octavian is a spider, patient, quiet, and deadly, weaving a web of political alliances and propaganda from his difficult position in Rome. The Roman world is now split in 2, a fragile empire with 2 heads. The peace they have created is an illusion. The war to avenge Caesar is over, but the war to decide who will become Caesar is just about to begin. You travel east, following in the wake of Mark Antony. His journey through the province of Asia, modern-day Turkey, is less a military tour and more a victory parade. Cities shower him with honors, calling him the new Dionysus, the god of wine and revelry. Antony, a man who never shied away from a party, happily plays the part. He lives in extravagant luxury, holding lavish banquets and enjoying the fawning attention of local client kings and queens. He is settling into his role as the master of the East with immense relish. Amidst this, he has business to attend to. He needs money, and lots of it. He summons the rulers of the various kingdoms under Roman influence to his headquarters in the city of Tarsus. One of these rulers is the Queen of Egypt, Cleopatra. She is a fascinating and unique figure. Though she rules Egypt, she is not Egyptian. She is the last descendant of the Ptolemaic dynasty, a Greek family that had ruled Egypt since the time of Alexander the Great. She is also incredibly intelligent, famously fluent in multiple languages, a skilled politician, and possesses an irresistible charisma. And she has a history with Rome's leaders. She was, you recall, the lover of the great Julius Caesar, and she bore him a son, Caesarion. When Antony summons her, she does not rush to obey. She knows exactly who she is dealing with. She understands that this is not a command performance, but a political seduction. She needs to secure her throne and the future of her kingdom, and Antony is the key, so she makes him wait. Then, instead of arriving as a supplicant, she stages one of the most famous entrances in history. She sails up the river Cydnus to Tarsus, not in a warship, but in a magnificent golden barge. The oars are silver, beating time to the music of flutes and pipes. Her serving girls are dressed as sea nymphs, and she herself is reclining under a gilded canopy, dressed as Venus, the Roman goddess of love. The air is thick with the scent of exotic perfumes burning on the deck. The people of Tarsus and Antony himself are utterly enchanted. It is pure theater, and it works perfectly. Antony invites her to dinner. She declines and invites him to a banquet on her barge instead. The opulence and splendor of the feast are beyond anything Antony has ever seen. The next night, he tries to host her in return, but his Roman general's fare seems shabby and plain by comparison. He is captivated not just by her beauty, but by her wit, her intelligence, and her power. He had intended to punish her for supposedly helping the liberators. Instead, he falls completely under her spell. He follows her back to her capital, Alexandria, for the winter of 41 BC. Here, you witness their famous life of indulgence. They form a private club called the Inimitable Livers, dedicated to a life of nightly feasting, drinking, and extravagant games. They wander the streets of Alexandria in disguise, playing pranks on the local citizens. On the surface, it seems like a frivolous affair, a powerful general enjoying a decadent holiday. But beneath the revelry, a powerful alliance is being forged. Cleopatra sees in Antony a protector for her kingdom and a father for her children. Antony sees in Cleopatra access to the bottomless wealth of Egypt, the resources he will need for his planned grand invasion of Parthia, Rome's great rival in the east. Their love affair is also a strategic partnership. But back in Rome, Octavian, the quiet spider, is watching, and he knows that this legendary romance is the greatest political gift he could ever ask for. While Antony is living as a virtual king in the glamorous East, you return to the grim reality of Italy. Octavian is dealing with the fallout of their victory. He is the face of the unpopular land confiscations, making enemies with every farm he seizes for a veteran. He has to put down a revolt led by Antony's own brother and wife, who tried to take advantage of the chaos. He is fighting small, dirty political battles, trying to hold the fragile West together. He works tirelessly, projecting an image of traditional Roman virtue and hard work. He is the responsible one, the man cleaning up the mess while his partner indulges in foreign luxuries. And he is listening. Reports flood into Rome from the east, and Octavian's propaganda machine, one of the most effective in history, kicks into high gear. Every story of Antony's life with Cleopatra is carefully collected, twisted, and amplified. Octavian doesn't need to lie very much. He just needs to frame the truth in the most damaging way possible. He begins a war not of swords, but of words, a campaign to destroy Antony's reputation and turn the Roman people against him. You can almost see the whispers spreading from the Senate House to the public baths. Antony, the great Roman general, is no longer Roman. He has gone native. He has been bewitched by a foreign queen, an Egyptian sorceress. The stories paint a picture of a man who has forgotten his duty, spending his days in drunken debauchery. They say he dresses in Greek and Egyptian clothes, not the noble Roman toga. An obscure fun fact that probably started as a rumor from this time was that Antony and Cleopatra would engage in fishing contests, and when Antony was having a bad day, he would have divers secretly attach fish to his hook to impress the queen. The story goes that Cleopatra, seeing through the ruse, had a diver attach a salted, preserved fish from the Black Sea to his line, a clear joke about how far from home he truly was. Octavian's propaganda is brilliant because it taps into deep-seated Roman prejudices. Romans were deeply proud of their own culture and deeply suspicious of the decadent and effeminate monarchies of the East. Egypt, in particular, was seen as a land of strange animal-headed gods and dangerous luxury. Cleopatra is cast not as a powerful political leader, but as a seductress, a foreign temptress who seeks to corrupt a noble Roman and rule the world through him. The propaganda reaches its peak when Antony officially celebrates a military triumph, not in Rome, as was sacred tradition, but in the streets of Alexandria. At this ceremony, he and Cleopatra sit on golden thrones. He declares her Queen of Kings and her son by Caesar, Caesarion, the true heir of Julius Caesar. This is a direct challenge to Octavian's identity as Caesar's son. He then divides up vast territories of the Roman East, lands that weren't even his to give, among Cleopatra and their own children. To the people of Rome, this is the ultimate betrayal. It looks like he is trying to move the capital of the Roman world from the Tiber to the Nile. He is giving away parts of the empire to his foreign lover and her children. Octavian now has all the ammunition he needs. He illegally obtains Antony's will from the Temple of the Vestal Virgins in Rome and reads it aloud to the Senate. In it, Antony reaffirms the territorial gifts to Cleopatra's children and, most shockingly, expresses his wish to be buried, not in Rome, but beside Cleopatra in Alexandria. This is the final nail in his coffin. It confirms every fear the propaganda had stoked. Antony is no longer a Roman. He is a puppet of the Egyptian queen. Octavian is able to declare war, but not on Antony. To do so would be to start another civil war, which the people were tired of. Instead, with masterful political skill, he declares war on Cleopatra. It is a foreign war, a patriotic war, to save Rome from a dangerous foreign queen and her bewitched Roman general. Italy and the entire West rally to Octavian's side. The stage is set for the final confrontation. The fate of the world now hangs on a single, decisive conflict. Antony and Cleopatra gather their forces. They have a massive army and a fleet of over 500 warships. Many of their ships are enormous, veritable floating fortresses with multiple banks of oars, high towers for archers, and heavy bronze rams. They are designed for a classic naval battle of ramming and boarding. Their plan is to use this overwhelming naval power to crush Octavian's fleet and open the way for an invasion of Italy. They establish their base at Actium on the western coast of Greece, their fleet dominating the bay. You are now with Octavian's forces. His army is smaller, but his fleet, while made up of fewer and lighter ships, has a crucial advantage. His ships are commanded by the single greatest naval strategist of the age, Marcus Vipsanius Agrippa. Agrippa is Octavian's childhood friend and his most loyal and brilliant general. He is the military genius behind the quiet politician. His ships are smaller, lower in the water, and far more maneuverable. They are Liburnians, a type of ship modeled on those used by Illyrian pirates, designed for speed and agility rather than brute force. They are also equipped with a secret weapon, the harpax, a type of catapult that fired a massive grappling hook. It could be shot at an enemy ship, lodging in its hull, and then a winch would drag the bigger ship in, close to be boarded or burned. The campaign begins not with a great battle, but with a masterful blockade. For weeks, Agrippa uses his faster ships to outmaneuver Antony's fleet, cutting off his supply lines by land and sea. Conditions inside Antony's camp at Actium become desperate. Food runs out, disease spreads, morale plummets, and desertions become common. Antony, the great general, is trapped. His only option is to try and break out of the blockade with his fleet. On September 2nd, 31 BC, the battle begins. Antony and Cleopatra's fleet rows out of the bay to meet the challenge. You witness the clash of two different naval philosophies. Antony's huge ships move slowly, like lumbering elephants, trying to ram and crush their smaller opponents. But Agrippa's Liburnians are like a pack of wolves. They are too fast and nimble to be caught. They dart in and out, harassing the larger vessels, using their archers and catapults to rain fire down on their decks. The harpax proves devastating. A grappling hook lodges in the side of one of Antony's giant quinquiremes, and the smaller ship winches it in close, its marines swarming aboard. The battle rages for hours, a confused and chaotic melee of smoke, fire, and the splintering of wood. Despite the skill of Agrippa's fleet, Antony's ships are tough, and the outcome is still uncertain. Then, something strange happens. A squadron of 60 Egyptian ships, with Cleopatra's flagship among them, suddenly hoists its sails and breaks away from the battle. They sail south, fleeing the fight. Historians have debated this moment for 2,000 years. Was it a pre-arranged plan for escape if the battle went badly? Was it an act of cowardice, or did she believe Antony was already lost and was trying to save herself and the Egyptian treasury? Whatever the reason, Antony sees her leaving, and in that moment, he makes a decision that seals his fate and cements his place in history as a man ruled by love, not duty. He abandons his men. He transfers from his own massive flagship to a smaller, faster vessel and gives chase, leaving his entire fleet and army to fend for themselves. His soldiers and sailors watch in disbelief as their commander deserts them in the middle of a battle. With their leader gone, the remaining resistance collapses. One by one, Antony's ships are captured or burned. Agrippa and Octavian have won a total and catastrophic victory. The war is effectively over. The clash at Actium was not just a naval battle. It was the moment the Roman world, which had been split in two, was finally and violently welded back together under the rule of one man. The victory at Actium was decisive, but the story was not quite finished. The final act had to be played out in the ancient and exotic land of Egypt. You follow Octavian's legions as they close in from the west and east, a pincer movement designed to crush any last remnants of resistance. Antony and Cleopatra have returned to Alexandria, but the world they knew has crumbled around them. Their allies have deserted them. Their armies have surrendered. They are trapped in the city, waiting for the inevitable. The mood in Alexandria is one of despair and impending doom. Antony, the once great general, swings between fits of rage and deep depression. He builds a small, solitary house for himself by the sea, calling it his Timonium, named after a famous Athenian misanthrope who hated all mankind. He feels utterly betrayed by his friends, his men, and his gods. Cleopatra, ever the pragmatist, prepares for the end in a different way. She begins experimenting with various poisons on prisoners, searching for the quickest and most painless way to die. She also begins construction on a magnificent mausoleum, a grand tomb where she and Antony can be buried together. When Octavian's forces finally reach the outskirts of Alexandria, Antony rouses himself for one last, desperate fight. He leads his remaining cavalry in a surprisingly successful charge, routing the enemy horsemen. He returns to the palace, exhilarated by this small victory, and embraces Cleopatra, still in his armor. But it is a fleeting moment of triumph. The next day, he prepares for a final battle, but his entire fleet and his remaining legions defect to Octavian's side without a fight. The end has come. A false rumor, perhaps started by Cleopatra herself in a desperate attempt to gauge his reaction, reaches Antony that the queen is dead. Shattered by this final blow, he decides he cannot live without her. He asks his loyal servant Eros to kill him, but Eros, unable to strike his master, kills himself instead. Antony, moved by this display of loyalty, takes his own sword and falls upon it. The wound, however, is not immediately fatal. He lies bleeding and in agony. It is then that he learns the truth. Cleopatra is alive. She has barricaded herself in her nearly completed mausoleum with a few trusted attendants. Antony, dying, begs to be taken to her. He is hoisted up the walls of the tomb on ropes and brought inside, where he dies in her arms. It is a tragic, operatic end for a man who lived his life on a grand scale. A few days later, Octavian enters Alexandria as its conqueror. He allows Cleopatra to give Antony a royal funeral. He then meets with her. "You are a fly on the wall for this legendary encounter." Octavian is cold, calculating, and impassive. Cleopatra, now in her late 30s, tries to use the charm that had captivated Caesar and Antony. She dresses in mourning but allows her appearance to be alluring, disheveled. She tries to flatter him, to bargain with him, to secure her kingdom for her children. But Octavian is immune. He is not a man of passion like his predecessors. He is a man of pure, cold politics. He has one purpose for her. He wants to take her back to Rome and parade her through the streets in his triumph, the ultimate symbol of his victory. Cleopatra understands. She would rather die a queen than be humiliated as a captive. After the meeting, she is kept under guard, but she manages to get a message out. The traditional story, romanticized for centuries, is that a basket of figs was brought to her, with a deadly asp, a type of cobra, hidden beneath the leaves. However she managed it, whether by snakebite or a hidden vial of poison, she takes her own life. She is found on her golden bed, dressed in her full royal regalia, looking like a queen even in death. Octavian, though reportedly angry at being denied his ultimate prize, respects her wishes. He has her buried with full honors beside Mark Antony in the mausoleum she had built. The last pharaoh of Egypt is dead. The Ptolemaic dynasty is over. And with the death of Antony and Cleopatra, the long, brutal civil wars that began with Caesar crossing the Rubicon are finally at an end. You return to Rome with Octavian. He is no longer the boy or the junior partner. He is the sole, undisputed master of the Roman world. He is 33 years old, and he has outmaneuvered, outfought, and outlived every single one of his rivals. The city greets him with a magnificent triumph, a 3-day celebration of his victories. The immense treasure he seized from Egypt floods into Rome, ending an economic crisis and making him personally wealthier than the state itself. The doors to the Temple of Janus, which were kept open in times of war, are ceremonially closed for the first time in 200 years. A weary world breathes a sigh of relief. Peace has finally come. But now Octavian faces his greatest challenge, a problem far more complex than any battle. What does he do with this absolute power? The Roman people despise the very idea of a king. The word rex was the ultimate political insult. He knows that his own adoptive father, Julius Caesar, was assassinated for appearing too monarchical. To simply declare himself king would be a fatal mistake. He needs to create a system where he holds the power of a king but maintains the appearance of a republic. It is a political tightrope walk of breathtaking genius. Over the next few years, you watch as he masterfully rebrands himself and the state. He doesn't invent new royal-sounding titles. Instead, he carefully collects all the traditional republican powers for himself. He is elected consul, year after year. He is granted the power of a tribune, which gives him a veto over the Senate and makes his person legally sacrosanct. He keeps command of the most important frontier provinces where the majority of the legions are stationed. This means he personally controls the army. He purges the Senate of unworthy members and then packs it with his own loyal supporters. He doesn't abolish the Senate or the popular assemblies. He lets them keep functioning, lets them pass laws and hold elections, but he controls everything from behind the scenes. It is a brilliant illusion. Then, in 27 BC, he performs his masterpiece of political theater. He goes before the Senate and, in a grand gesture, announces that he is renouncing all of his extraordinary powers and returning them to the Senate and people of Rome. He declares the Republic restored. The senators, many of whom owe their careers and lives to him, are horrified. They know that without his firm hand, the state would likely collapse back into civil war. They also know what is expected of them. They protest. They beg him to stay, to guide the state. After a carefully staged display of reluctance, he agrees. The Senate then convinces him to accept a new package of powers and, most importantly, a new name. They want to call him Romulus, after the city's founder. but that name is too closely tied to kingship. Instead, they settle on a different title, one that is vague, religious, and has no political history. They name him Augustus. It means the revered one, or the illustrious one. It has an aura of divine sanction without the taint of monarchy. He also takes the title of princeps, which simply means first citizen. He is not a king or an emperor. He is just the leading man in the state, the first among equals. It is a lie, of course. A beautiful, carefully constructed lie that everyone agrees to believe, because the alternative, another generation of war, is too terrible to contemplate. Gaius Julius Caesar, out of Ianus, is gone. In his place stands Augustus, the first Roman emperor, the architect of a new age, who has managed to create a monarchy while pretending to save the republic. With Augustus firmly in control, a strange and wonderful thing settles over the Roman world: peace. It is not the absence of all fighting, as there are still campaigns on the distant frontiers, but for the heart of the empire, for the millions living around the Mediterranean, it is an era of unprecedented stability and prosperity. This period will become known as the Pax Romana, the Roman peace, and it will last for nearly 200 years. It is the ultimate, paradoxical result of the assassination that was meant to save the Republic. The chaos and bloodshed unleashed by Caesar's death was so terrible that they made the world desperate for a single, strong ruler. You walk through the city of Rome, and it is being transformed. Augustus famously boasted that he found Rome a city of brick and left it a city of marble. He initiates a massive building program that goes far beyond what even his adoptive father had envisioned. New temples, basilicas, theaters, and public baths rise across the city. He establishes the city's first fire brigade and its first police force, the urban cohorts, making the chaotic metropolis safer and more manageable. He sponsors art and literature, and his reign becomes a golden age for poets like Virgil, Horace, and Ovid, who celebrate the new era of peace and the divine destiny of Rome. The peace and stability extend far beyond the capital. You can travel from the shores of Britain to the deserts of Syria without a passport, using a single, stable currency, on a network of incredible roads that all seem to lead, as the saying goes, to Rome. Piracy, once a plague on the Mediterranean, is virtually wiped out by the powerful Roman navy. Trade flourishes. Goods and ideas move freely across a vast, unified economic zone. A merchant can load grain in Egypt, sell it in Italy, and buy Spanish wine to sell in Gaul, all within the protection of a single, overarching power. It is a world of breathtaking contradictions. The political freedom that the old aristocrats like Brutus fought and died for is gone, replaced by the will of one man. But for the average person, life is arguably better and more secure than it had ever been. There are no more prescriptions.